Well, good morning, everybody. From Agorada, we are very grateful to be able to count on you, participants and speakers today here in Agorada 2021. My name is Rosa Escamilla, and I'm part of the Agorada team. Even though this year is different because of the global pandemic, we have organized this event with all our effort and enthusiasm. For this time, it's the first time in 25 years since 1992 that we are going to hold this annual main conference online. I am sure it's going to be a success. We are 203 people registered. As you can see on the screen, these are the rules to follow during this 2-hour conference. And please, you are welcome to write in the chat box any questions that you have during the event. And after each session, they will be answered. And next slide. Perfect, thank you. And in addition, as you may have seen in the website and in the registration, today's conference will be divided into 4 sessions. But of course, Roberta, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for being here, and welcome to the President of Agorada.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and each of you. I'd like to, at first, I really like to thank everyone for participating to this meeting. In particular, I'd like to address a special thanks to all discussants and speakers who will contribute to this meeting. And of course, a special thanks to Agorada Secretariat, to all the people who made it possible. So, as you, a lot of you, many of you already know, Agorada 2021 is devoted to the presentation and the discussion about the new programming period. During this meeting, you will have, as you have already seen by reading the booklet which I have sent to you, we will analyze different subjects dealing with the main issues which are really important for regional development agencies and in general for socioeconomic developers. As you know, this meeting can be the ideal chance in order to get different point of views on the programs, on policies, and in particular, the issues which will be addressed today will be 3 main issues, let's say. One dealing with the European Bauhaus, which is a very important initiative which will be discussed by the JRC, as you see by the agenda, by Mrs. Borislava Woodford, and by Mr. Sergio Perez from General Direction Foreign Affairs of the Government of Navarra. As you see, we always try to involve, on one hand, EC commissioners, or anyway, EC institutions and organizations on one hand, and on the other hand, our colleagues working on at regional and level and in different territories. Then the second issue that will be addressed today will be the challenge of climate change, the international cooperation and the International Innovation Investment Initiative, which will be dealt by Mr. Andrea Di Anselmo of Meta Group, who always accompanies us in new challenges and in new missions, together with 2 speakers, Anita Trenier-Milnaric of Meta Group and Mrs. Valeria Bandini of Arter, who's a colleague of mine. Then the third issue will be international cooperation. As you know, Agorada is a European network of regional development agencies, but open to the world, to the global dimension. And we have been in the past programming period involved in this program, which will be analyzed in its new version. That is the international cooperation, international urban and regional cooperation. which will be presented by Jaime del Castillo of Infide and by Mr. Ronald Hall of DG Regio of the European Commission. And we will show you two practical cases thanks to Jerker Johnson of the Regional Council of Ostrobothnia in Sweden and Mrs. Gabriela Macovieu of ADR Northeast, which is one of our member agency of Romania. Then we will have an explanation of what can be an experiment in innovation policy in Europe by the Innovation Growth Lab, which will be presented by Albert Bravo. Let me tell you about another very important initiative which has been held yesterday. As you know, Agorada is always on the edge, trying to deal with all main policies and issues dealing with regional and local development. Yesterday, we have been the organizer of a very important meeting of the working group on digitalization, which has been settled in 2016, and of course, this working group is trying to facilitate the mutual learning about practitioner on digitalization. And I kindly invite you to download a particular app, which is a kind of prototype, which has been created in the framework of this working group. And this you will see in the chat how to download in your cell phone or in your PC this app, and you can try you can try it. So I close my brief presentation, thanking also our director. I don't know if he has recovered after the vaccine. And as you know, this is a very peculiar period. We are trying to recover from this pandemic situation. And I really hope to have soon the opportunity to meet all of you directly in a meeting in Brussels or in another European or non-European country. Thank you very much. I give the floor to Rosa in order to start the discussion and to go to the nitty-gritty of the different questions that we are going to analyze today. Thank you and have a good working day.
Thank you very much, Roberta, for your words of welcome. Well, as you have already heard, first of all, we will talk about the new European Bauhaus initiative. And today we will have Sergio Perez and Borislava Woodford. Sergio Perez is the Director General for Foreign Affairs of the Government of Navarra. He's an expert in project management and European R&D networks at the EISMA. So, Sergio Perez, welcome. The screen is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosa. Thank you, the organizers, especially Esteban, the director of Agorada. And I'm really happy to be here today with all of you. But I must confess that I have crossed feelings. On the one hand, because I am here with all of you, I'm really positive of explaining the activities of the government of Navarre, which I am representing. But on the other hand, I will be happier if we could meet in person together. And I hope that the next Agorada meeting will take place physically, so we can exchange and have a networking event all together. So without any delay, I will explain some points of the how the government of Navarre has been working relating the new European Bauhaus initiative that later the JRC speaker will talk about. But let me introduce some couple of points about how we work it in Navarre. So please, Rosa, confirm that you are seeing now the screen.
Yes, okay. Perfect.
So most of you will probably know our region, Navarra, which is which was selected European Entrepreneurial region last year, and I will introduce you with a couple of minutes just our territory, where are we, which basically is in the north of Spain. We are a region really small, but located in the north of Spain, and which frontiers with France, which is a very strategical situation because we are working there like in the Euro region or other interregional cross-border programs and focus groups that can solve problems for proximity people, and that's the location that we are located in. As you may know, we are 614,000 population in 2016, and it's a good region, which the capital is Pamplona, that you will probably know because of the bull run-in, the San Fermines. And here you have a couple of figures and dates about our growth rate and the GDP per capita per year, which is above the media of Spain. We are, as I was saying, the third region with the highest GDP per capita in Spain. And also, we are lucky to count on a known taxation system, which allow us to collect the different financial and taxations from the stakeholders and the enterprises by ourselves, so we can manage directly these findings, which is a historical commitment that we have as region. Also, we are happy to count on a very high level education system with 3 universities. One of them is the Public University of Navarre, which is the leader of the regional development commitment through the different universities of Spain. Also, we have a private one, which is the University of Navarre, which is leader also in internationalization students and also with obtaining financial funds for the competitive funds through the framework program, and the distance education university. And relating the innovation system, I must say that we are very aligned with the S3 strategy, that we are working really close with the agents and the SMEs, stakeholders, technological centers here in our region. And as you can see here, it has very direct results in the different areas that we have defined an S3 priorities, which we are now reviewing with all the stakeholders and through our development agency, which is Sodena, and you all of them know them. And we have a clear impact or a clear bet for the R&D innovation. We have a pioneering law, which is a regional law relating the investment on R&D. Also, we have 9 technological centers that you have to be reminded that for a 500,000 or more than 500,000 population is quite a good rate. And we are really committing talent and attracting new highest level of education inhabitants to our region. Relating the Bauhaus initiative that our speaker, Borislava, will later explain, I would like to explain what we did during these months relating this initiative, which is quite interesting, a clear bet for the Commission in the name of the President of Ursula von der Leyen, and I will explain how we did it. First of all, in the government of Navarre, we detected in a prior phase in October when it was taking place these first discussions about the new European Bauhaus, whether it will be an interest of being a part of this initiative. And we started from the DG External Action, the Foreign Affairs, that I have the pleasure of being the director of it. If other departments such as culture, environment, building, which are the main principles of the new European Bauhaus, were interested in knowing more, if they had any idea of what's going on about this initiative, and we received a really positive feedback. But on the other hand, it is not enough to know whether the government is interested in this initiative, in this policy, that it aligns perfectly with the policy of the government of Navarre relating sustainability, we had to discuss with other stakeholders, with other people from our region, whether it would be interesting for them. So we create a focus group, a task group called Navarra Bauhaus, which is a group in where all the different stakeholders from the region, from the different statements and from the different parts of our region, all together created this discussing group and explained how the initiative was taking place. For example, from the government of Navarre, with a building, a public society called Nasuvinsa, they were really interested because they already have different projects like EFIT districts, and some of them are financed by the European Commission, which are aligned with the European Bauhaus because it involves the regeneration wave of the efficiency energy. So they were really interested. Then two universities, the two of them, the Public University of Navarre and the University of Navarre, which is the architectural faculty that you probably know, they also saw that they were really committed about the development of the campus, the vision of the different architects, and they were willing to collaborate with the regional government in order to apply together to different calls or to know the different initiatives. Also the cultural sector. There in the picture, you can see different cultural associations, the Department of Culture from the government of Navarre, but we also had not only associations, but individuals, people who were willing to express themselves and have an opinion about what's going on or how they could create the future of the European, through the European Bauhaus. Civil society as well, with different associations for participation and co-creation, and architects, that you know that they are united through the different associations, and we had urbanism architects, we had also edification, we had different parts, and finally the municipalities. We had the federal association aggregation of the territorial cohesion of Navarre. So we had city towns which were expressing how they could cohesion among all the territory, because the initiative of the European Bauhaus, it's about changing the vision of how we interact, not only in the city centers, but also in the rural areas, which we are facing the rural world and the population there. So the second 22nd of April, the Commissioner Gabriel and Ferreira, they both presented the European Bauhaus, and a week later, we created, or we organized a webinar, which had 70 attendants, and it was the first webinar in Spanish. So we count also with the Joint Research Center with the European Commission, and there we explained it how different initiatives were taking place in Navarre, which are aligned with the European Bauhaus. It had very good impact on the attendance. Then in the 4th of May, we organized this first regionalist workshop, this talk that I was talking about, that it consists of uniting all the stakeholders or the regional partners that had something to say about the European Bauhaus, and create this discussion, this co-creation talk, in order to see how were we doing these things with these initiatives and how they could interact among them, which it was really interesting, this regional workshop. And we will have another workshop soon, that it will be also the development of the initiative. The 31st of May, this new month, this new Monday, the European Bauhaus prizes will have the deadline for presenting the prizes. So we encourage our stakeholders to submit their ideas in order to apply for these prizes. So we spread the word, or we as government, what we did was to inform about this initiative in order to go through all the stakeholders. In September, we are applying for the Horizon Mission 2021 European Bauhaus. You know that they are 5 regions, 5 zones that will be funded in order to have pilots of the new European Bauhaus. So with these stakeholders, with all the participation, with all the inclusive associations, we are discussing which is the best way of being one region of the new European Bauhaus. Also, the 10th of July, you know that there's the EIT Euro Mobility call for cities and regions. We also disseminate among our municipalities in order to apply. And then in the European Regions Week, we are organizing an event jointly with the DG Culture, because we submitted an event of the new European Bauhaus, and the same commission told us that it would be better to co-organize this event about how the Navarrese experience or how we are doing creating this new European Bauhaus. So these are the steps that we have been doing that I would recommend you to do the same with your within your region in the development agencies. And this is just the case of Navarre. I will not want to extend more. I would like now to introduce our speaker who will explain better the European Bauhaus initiative, Mrs. Borislava Goodfur, who is a policy analyst at the European Bauhaus initiative team, run under the auspices of the President of the European Commission, Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen. Mrs. Borislava, she has over 12 years of experience in the field of EU structural and investment funds in several different units of the Commission's Directorate for Regional and Urban Development, focusing on working with local and regional authorities for creating project pipelines and EU-funded management. And back in 2019, she had a short stint at the cabinet of Corina Cretu, former Commissioner for Regional Policy, and was part of the team negotiating the European Regional Development Fund regulation for 21-27 in the Council and the Parliament. So we are very happy to count on you, Borislava. Thanks for being here with us. And now the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sergio. Do you all see me and hear me? Yes, okay.
Perfectly.
Okay, good. The region of Navarra is one of our best ambassadors. So thank you for pitching out for the initiative even before I take the floor. But let me thank Agorada, Rosa, and everyone for organizing today's event and for inviting us, the Joint Research Center team, to give you a short presentation. I will not take more than 15 minutes time, but maybe there will be some minutes for questions and answers. A lot of the items I'll touch upon were mentioned by Sergio, but hopefully my presentation will put things in perspective. And I also want to say hello to Ronnie Hall, my former colleague from DG Regio. Very pleased to see some other names like Sandra Marin. We work together. So I feel at ease and already welcomed. I will try to share my slides right away. You tell me if you can see them. Okay, great. Very few words. So my name is Borislava Woodford. I joined the Joint Research Center on January 1st. We are a very small unit, Unit 01, recently created to run the initiative under the auspices of Mrs. von der Leyen, the President of the Commission, but also we go hand in hand with two commissioners that were mentioned by Sergio, Ms. Elisa Ferreira, who is the Commissioner for Reform and Regional Policy, and Ms. Gabrielle, Maria Gabrielle, who is the Commissioner for Research and Development, Education and Culture. Without much ado, I'll start straight into the key features of our initiatives. As you know, it all started with the speech, the State of the Union speech that President had last September, when the idea of launching a new European Bauhaus movement was mentioned. It's a project of hope, as she likes to put it, as we are trying to shape a movement about the future of how we live and explore how we can live better together. That these are just great words, but more practically, what we're trying to do is bring the Green Deal to our living spaces, but in a different way, also getting the cultural, educational, and creative aspect to doing so, not just the green and circularity aspects. It is a very interdisciplinary, intercultural type of initiative. I will go into what we mean by that later on when I present the different phases of the movement. The old original Bauhaus movement that dates back from 100 years ago started with the logo or the motto they had, form follows function. Now we're trying to factor other aspects to it, to go beyond form follows function, factor the planet, obviously climate crisis, but also look in the social aspects, the cultural, educational aspects of our current times, and look into the recovery, hopefully very soon, post-pandemic time, recovery under the auspices of the Green Deal, but within the framework of the Green Deal, but with new angles and new ways of thinking about it. So this is an initiative that is one of the few examples of the European Commission trying to think and deliver out of the box. So we're trying to co-design an initiative and not come up with an idea and then also impose, as we often tend to do, funding or ways of structure of going about something. The next slide is very important, because I'm trying to say here what it is that is important for us to call a project, let's say a Bauhaus project. The initial scope is obviously the built environment, but not only. But what a project could claim that it is Bauhausian, or whatever we want to call it, Bauhaus initiative like, should demonstrate the three key pillars, which is for us sustainability, which is not necessarily and only about greening our investments and thinking of climate change and what it means for us. So including circularity, but not only. Aesthetics and the quality of experience. This is a broad subject. Aesthetics is what we mean here is not necessarily beauty and aesthetics in the pure sense of the word, but more like how we feel about a place. Do we feel safe living in a city? The quality of experience overall. And then, of course, the obvious third pillar for us and for our stakeholders would be inclusion, but again in the broader sense, including, of course, accessibility and affordability, but going into social inclusion, access to health services type of inclusion, economic inclusion. Affordability is also a very, very important word for us. So whatever we build or we transform should be more accessible for more of us, if you see what I mean. The long-term goal here is to have a mindset change, a cultural transformation, something that we can see as tangible, obviously in places in where we live. That would be cities, but not necessarily rural places that were mentioned by Navarra are very important to the initiative as well. So it's not an urban initiative. That's what I'm trying to say here. And we're even attempting to go into changing business ecosystems and influencing markets, but that is the long-term vision for it. Let's see how we go about it. The timeline is exemplified by next slide. Until the summer, but it really is until end of June. What we're doing right now is what we call the design or harvesting phase of the initiative. Then we will enter the delivery. The delivery would be really pulling together finances and launching calls for proposals and trying to get the finances there to demonstrate some tangible results of the co-design phase of how we decided to go about the initiative. And then beyond 2022 would come the dissemination phase. In the design phase, as I mentioned, for us, that's very crucial because that's where we're trying to shape what we want to do via an input. So we have a web page. If you type New European Bauhaus Initiative, you will get to our website, and there we have co-design section where we would wish people, institutions, citizens, whoever, to come and participate by hosting a conversation, exchanging good examples, ideas, but mainly, most importantly for us, challenges. Share your academic work, papers, essays, and we view all contributions equally. But we are running out of time for that. So if any of you would wish to pitch for us and get more input, we'll be happy to screen them, because we're trying to come with concrete contemporary examples, but also build partnerships beyond what's in our website, and have a community of ambassadors. So your session today is an excellent way for us to promote the initiative, and I'm very happy that so far I saw that over 110 people are listening to me. In the design phase, these are very first examples of what we got as input. For example, a small design school of Matera were telling us already back in January, where we opened the website, about their multidisciplinary gatherings, learning by doing. Or we also, that's just an example, we also look for ideas and visions. They don't necessarily have to be projects or anything, but just concepts, prototypes. And we are trying to see how we can bridge the different generations, so between what's going on as expectations by young generations, of course, in terms of the Green Deal, they're very, very active, but also what's going on for the elderly, especially at the end of pandemic, when we all feel vulnerable. And so we're trying to take account of the needs of all generations in designing new built environment. That's very put in a very in a nutshell, but it's obviously beyond the built environment too. And we're trying to filter challenges and needs that come from bottom up. So we want a holistic approach, but we need people to tell us what they want to see changed, how they want to see it post-pandemic. There is this picture of a block of flats in Plantenbaum buildings. There's, well, we've put on the slides, what do we do with ugly buildings? For me, I come from Sofia, Bulgaria, so I've seen blocks of flats much uglier. So it's just an example that we all perceive things differently. And, you know, to me, these buildings are not ugly, but obviously for others, they probably need refurbishment. And this is where the initiative is linked to the renovation wave recently launched by the Commission as well. I've brought a couple of examples of what's coming in terms of inputs, and we're trying to make sense of what's coming in through the design phase on our website. So people interested in alternative, greener working and meeting type places. So a physical space that is really at the service of its community. There's just an example here that comes through, and then another one is a school that would teach younger generations to be more in tune with nature. So we're looking for beautiful, sustainable buildings, but it's beyond buildings. It's what happens in these buildings and around these buildings in terms of educating young people to cater and care for the environment mainly, and not only. Then also prototypes for new and sustainable forms of housing. I mean, housing is where we live. It's a lot of our daily life is spent inside our homes. So we're trying to see what alternative materials we can build with. How can we be more minimalistic and more affordable in our urban and rural environments? The delivery phase is I get most of the questions on delivery phase. You know, where can we get some funding from? And that's what we're trying to do right now. The first real example of something out there are our prizes that Sergio mentioned. There is a separate slide on that. I will tell you more about the prizes that looking for reporting inspirational examples, and they have a monetary value to it. But most importantly is maybe in the autumn we will come up with the first pilots, so calls for proposals, um, uh, and we are trying to pull resources from shared management but also direct management. Those are the modes that the European budget is distributed under at the European Commission. So we're working with a lot of different DGs, trying to align what's going on in the pipeline in terms of support, technical assistance support, and what we call flanking measures, you know, trying to set the ground for, say, a small municipality to run a Bauhaus project, but really in terms of the three key pillars: sustainable, inclusive, and beautiful, but, you know, aesthetically pleasing, but not necessarily just about the looks, but also about how we feel about a place. And then all ultimately trying to set up support structure in terms of financial support structure, and to continue to work with our growing community. These are the prizes. I'm really tempted to tell you go for them, because the deadline is next Monday. There are 10 different categories on our website. If you're interested, one of the pages is called Prizes. It takes you to a platform that is actually run and managed by DG Regional Development. They are hosting the prize platform, but also providing the support. In strand A, the winners, so they're in strand A, we're looking for existing projects. They will get 30,000 euros worth of prize plus a media coverage package. And strand B is for new rising stars. There we're looking for applications from very young people, from people who are not aged more than 30 years. So by 31st of May, you should be younger than 30, and then you can provide us with the concept or idea that you have. And then we will go through voting. The prize ceremony is scheduled for mid-September, where most probably President von der Leyen herself will hand out the awards. These are the categories. I'm not going to go into them, but for those of you who are interested, you will see they vary from educational modules to, of course, transforming cultural heritage, but also products, lifestyles, techniques, materials, some wacky topics that the Commission has never awarded for so far. Dissemination phase, that is what I mentioned, that is beyond 2022. Hopefully there'll be lots to disseminate. We are seeing a real amplification of the interest and the demand for our Bauhaus team to present, to spread the word. And we think that there will be lots to disseminate, but let's see how we function, how we go about it, and how the delivery phase actually kicks in. Just as a teaser, on our website, you'll see a high-level roundtable group of people. These are 18 personalities that come, of course, from the architectural design world, but not only. We have representatives of digital, cultural, urban planners, local authorities, innovators, next generation activists. For example, we have young Gina. She is only 19 and she is the Norwegian equivalent of Greta Thunberg. But we have very famous names of architects. We have a couple of representatives. One is a Japanese from outside Europe, a Japanese architect, Shigeru, and Sheila Patel is an Indian advocate for the poorest and for women's rights in general. So these people were selected by us, our team, to go and meet President von der Leyen and to give us ideas of how to shape the movement. They will not be working, say, in the type of working group for the commission giving out recommendations. No, they're simply a sounding board for us. If we go in the wrong direction, they will tell us from their own experience that that is what we shouldn't be doing. So they're there to inspire us. And then partners organizations, something that's taking a lot of time, of my personal time. We're screening every week between 30 to 40 applications that come through the systems. These are entities that wish to make official partnerships with us. So far, we've had over 560 entries, requests, and as of today, we have we have 139 official partners on our website. You can check that out. This is just a snapshot of the logos that we published. You would see a bunch of very different organizations. For example, I'll signal out Fundación Once, the Spanish Disability Foundation that is national, but also we have very, very small entities that can be a very local green NGO, like Rio Neva in Portugal, or Aalto University, but from the educational side. 2/3 of our partners come from the creative sector, which is designers and architects studios, which is obvious. But we have platforms, innovation platforms, small schools. We have Europa Nostra, which is a lot of you recognize, the Cultural Heritage Association. So I'm just saying here that we're trying to attract all sorts of partners in all sorts of fields. And so the size doesn't matter for us, as long as there is a capacity to reach out to your local constituency, and you can disseminate and work for us for the initiative, then we'll be happy to screen your application for partnership and take you perhaps on board. As I said, they are also our multipliers, our ambassadors, and they're trying to build a growing community that is beyond the co-design, the harvesting phase. Obviously, the most important phase, and the one that will take longer, would be the delivery, where we have some tangible transformations to expect. This is our website. All of it is there. We have an Instagram account. It's already followed by over 10,000 people. So the interest in our initiative is ever so growing. But I wish to stop here because I'm taking a lot of your time. I will stop sharing my screen, and I hope that you liked the presentation and you found something for yourselves. I'm happy to answer your questions now.
Many thanks, Borislava. I found it really interesting and really clear. And I thought that it's a good way of creating the future of tomorrow, the new Bauhaus initiative. If there's no question, I would like to raise one. Let's say that a development agency, as we are here, the different development agencies, how can they, or how can we start with this process? What development agencies should do in order to encourage to participate to this Bauhaus initiative? Any recommendations here?
Yes, thank you. There are several ways of local stakeholders or development agency stakeholders that can go about in associating themselves with the initiative or working for it. Of course, one of those I mentioned is the website, where they can give support in the co-design phase. Also, the website very soon will have a delivery page, which would show you a short timetable of what proposals and calls are expected starting this autumn. So money-wise, there will be an info board for where local actors can look out for support to start thinking and preparing Bauhaus type projects. I'm not sure if they can apply themselves to become partners. There is also a question from Rosita Raikova: are municipalities eligible for applying for the Bauhaus initiative? We need to be clear on our website. You also have frequently asked questions. We don't accept entities that have any political links. So it's just they're not considered eligible. So municipalities, I'm afraid, would not be able to qualify as partners, nor could entities that are for profit. That's an obvious call. We cannot have businesses as official partners because we also have zero funding for our official partners. So it's not this type of partneriat that we're looking for. Of course, the development agencies, they can apply for our prizes, and that's just the first bunch of prizes for 2021. But we are thinking of how to develop the concept and get more funding for next year's European Bauhaus prizes. You can be simply a subscriber to our newsletter, put your name there in the Commission website on our page, and you will receive regular updates of what's going on Commission-wise, but not necessarily Commission-wise, but you know, what are our partners doing outside the Commission, and what other ways? I mean, there are lots of ways. It's just for each and one of you to figure out how best to participate. If you're interested in it, if you see anything for it, just go and explore our website. It's the first source of information.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, maybe we should thank you again, Borislav, for your presentation, for your introduction. As we have seen, this is a long-term initiative by the Commission, which is now being created in the co-designing phase, which will finish in this summer. And just to encourage all the development agencies and regional governments to encourage their stakeholders to be part of this initiative and to have a look at the website that you already mentioned. From my side, I just want to thank you again, Gerarda, for inviting the government of Navarre to present our initiatives and to be the speaker of this term. And I will now pass the floor to Rosa, who will introduce the new speaker. Thank you very much. Have you all a nice day and a good meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sergio and Borislava, for this very interesting presentation and for all the opportunities that you have explained to us. Now we move on the second part of the conference, where we will talk about interregional cooperation and the Interregional Innovation Investment Initiative. And well, today we are pleased to have Andrea Di Anselmo, Anita Tregner, and Valeria Bandini. Andrea Di Anselmo is a founding member of Meta. He has more than 25 years of experience in innovation and startup support, again participating to international projects, and well, he's board of directors of Meta Venture, and he's vice president of INSME, the International Association of SMEs. Andrea, the screen is yours, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you for the nice introduction. Good morning to everybody, and welcome to this session organized by Agorada. Just a few words before introducing the two speakers. Agorada has been always at the forefront of the initiatives related to regional innovation, to regional development, and as always provided its member with insight on what comes next, both in terms of challenges and in terms of opportunities. Today, we will introduce this I3, the Interregional International Initiative, which has a strong relationship with all the activities carried out with the smart specialization platforms, and has a strong relationship with the necessity to open up the smart specialization strategies of our regions to the international dimension. Necessity which was clear in the last programming period, but as is going to be even more important in the next programming period, 2021-2027, where there is also an enabling condition for the smart specialization strategies related to international collaboration. So what we are going to introduce during this session, it's very important and relevant, not just because it may become an opportunity to fund project, but also because it's something extremely strategic to boost and support innovation and SME competitiveness in our regions. So having said this, I would like to introduce our two speakers, Anita Tregner-Mlinaric. She is a senior expert on regional development. She has been working for Meta Group since many years, but has a strong background with international cooperation, especially in the Eastern Europe and Western Balkans. She will introduce us about the I3 initiatives and give us some hint and tips on how to approach possibly this opportunity. We will have then Valeria Bandini. Valeria, I don't want to say that we know her since many years, but she's been a very strong supporter of Agorada. She's the responsible for Europe and international cooperation, internationalization of Arter, and she will present the experience of Emilia-Romagna region, and she will also elaborate on what it's expecting us next, and she will also provide us with some hint on what Agorada will do in the future for its members. Thank you very much, and Anita, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Let me first try to share my screen. I hope you can see my presentation. Is it good? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Andrea. So Andrea already introduced me. So my name is Anita Tregner. I'm a senior advisor and policy expert at Meta Group. And I'm here at the office in Brussels, at the front office of Meta Group. I will try to give you hints, as Andrea was saying, about this new instrument that was started as component 5 some time ago when it started to kick off and started to be discussed. But then it was changed into interregional innovation investment instrument. So now the short name of it is I3. I will try to give you as much information as possible in this 10 to 15 minutes I have in front of me, but also to say that we can only present the information that we have up to date, because this initiative is still into development, and it's possible that the European Commission will, change some of its modalities. But in a nutshell, what we are going to present, it's what it is today, and we believe that still there will not be that many changes on what it is supposed to be. For us who've been working with the S3 partnerships and with the S3 platform for many years, because we've been also supporting them through Reconfirm and TAF initiative, we know that this has been one of the most expected instruments, in funding instruments, because it was really missing, for the projects that we've been developed under the platform. So when it comes to the I3, this is the new instrument under the cohesion policy. It will be implemented under ERDF in this program period of 2001 and 2027, which we just started, and it has the budget of 580 million. Of course, the budget will be implemented into different ways, and I will talk a bit later about the strands through which it will be distributed. But as Andrea was also mentioning already, its main aim is to foster the interregional collaboration projects with a focus at companies, and to help, through this way to foster the development of further value chains. So its a main aim is to scale up the innovation, as well to accelerate it towards the commercialization, and also to support the S3 projects to be more integrated and developed within the regional innovation ecosystems. The way how it's going to be implemented is that it will provide grants to the SMEs. It will be targeting more developed or less developed regions, but the idea would be to have them, being working together. And depending on the strands through which it will be implemented, it will be offering the grants that will be up to 70% funded or to 100% funded, depending on the type of the grants. The mechanism through which the implementation will be done will be through the cascading type of funding mechanism. That is going to be applicable to the one of the first two strands when it comes to the capacity building action, which is the third strand. This will be through the 100% funded grants. As I was saying, there are different, type of regions that are targeted through this. It is also the same when it comes to who are the beneficiaries of these calls. So in the first two cases, we are talking about SMEs, while in the third one, these are these quadruple helix actors that will be the ones that will be targeted through this third call. As you know, and it was mentioned also already, that this type of funding mechanism is targeting the investment projects. And we know through Reconfirm and TAF that this was not easy also to be managed by the regions to get to the point to develop this type of projects. So we were also trying to explain, what are the elements to be taken into account, and what does it mean for the project to be investable, viable, investable, and bankable at the same time. So we were always saying that, this needs to be taken as you are going to the bank and you are taking a loan, so that you need to think of all these elements that need to be represented so that you can have a good project that at the end, will be so well presented and so well posed, so that the bank will offer you a loan. And this would be the same as you would be pitching your project to the investor. You need to have all these elements in place as shown in the slide, to make sure that you will be able to get the funding. So when it comes to the implementation scope of the I3, so how is it envisioned as it is up to today? So as I was saying, it's been put into three strands. So it is envisioned that the calls that will be out, they will be targeting mature and less mature partnerships. And they would be implemented through the call for the innovation actions. So this means that for the strand one, this is for the more developed regions, which again, as I was saying, it is intended to be that at least, one of the regions in the consortium is also less developed. And they're targeting the projects that are already at the level, tier level from 6 to 9, meaning that they're already ready to be at the demonstration phase. The overall budget for this strand 1 is, as you can see, more than 2,079 million, which means that the calls that will be out will be, be able to fund the projects that will be from 8, to 10 million of euros each. When it comes to strand A, it is very similar to the strand 1, but this one is targeting less developed regions, which again also means that at least one of the developed regions should be part of the consortium. And the total budget, it's a bit less than of the strand 1. It comes to 280 million, and also the overall amount that will be available to projects to fund, it comes to 2 to 3 million. The strand 2B, as it is called, it's actually targeting, again, less developed regions. But this is more for the capacity building, meaning that the projects that will be participating and selected for this type of action are the ones who will be kind of in a preparatory phase, then to have all the elements ready to later on also a plan for the strand 1. There is less of the budget envisioned for that one. It's 28 million, meaning that the projects that will apply for or be eligible for this type of actions will be able to get around 500,000 euros for their projects to develop. Here you can also see what it means, what complies when it comes to be more or less developed region, but also it is possible to find this categorization under S3 platform to be sure in which category your region applies to. So when it comes to the main elements to consider applying for the I3, as I already mentioned before, we are mentioning these technology readiness levels. So the I3 is targeting those that are starting with TRL 5 to 6, meaning that you already need to have projects in mind that are ready to the demonstration phase, and then the I3 will help those projects to get to the level that those projects will already be able to implement it, or as we are saying, that they will be ready to be commercialized and will have the go-to-market strategy. Also, the main elements that you need to think of, when applying, and this is what we are still trying to endorse and help the partnerships through the TAF project, is that you need to be ready and to have in mind that to apply for this type of calls, you need to have a good business plan already in place, which means that you need to have a good market analysis already performed, knowing who your customers are, and who your competitors are as well. You need to have a strong consortium which will be able to implement the investment that you are applying for and that you want to commercialize in the market. You need to have the key resources already planned. You need to have a good value proposition, which then it is also based on your market analysis, knowing that what you are endorsing into the market is the innovation that is missing, and that will find the right customers and will be able to provide innovative services in the market.
Anita,
yes,
1 minute.
Yes, 1 minute. I'm close to be done. So all that you see here are the elements that need to be presented in the business plan. And if you plan it already timely and that this should be the focus, then you have also better chances to propose a good application. Here you can also see which are the eligible costs that I3 will be able to cover. And they are, again, depending on the strands. For the strand 1 and strand 2A, you can see that these are the direct costs that are related to the project implementation, and that also it will be possible to get up to 7% of the cost, to be covered also for the coordination of the partnerships. When it comes to the strand 2B, this is more related, to the typology of these capacity building actions that you will be applying for, because there are different there are actually three different types that you can have into mind. And also you can see, as I already mentioned before, who are the final beneficiaries, the beneficiaries for all of the three strands. When it comes to the time frame, which I believe it's also of interest for you, is that the plan is to launch the first calls, at least for the first strand and the 2A strand, sometime during the summer, most possibly September, meaning that the projects will be then evaluated by the end of the year, and then implementation could be started early in 2022. When it comes to the third strand for the capacity building actions, most probably this one will take off in early beginning of 2020, and then it will be able to be implemented most possibly during the summer. So yes, in my 10 minutes, this is what I was able to tell you about the I3, and now I will pass the floor to the next speaker. Thank you, Andrea.
Valeria, please, the floor is yours.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Anita.
Hello, good morning to everybody. I will start sharing my presentation just to be sure that it works. Can you see it?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, perfect. So here we are then. Good morning, everybody. I'm Valeria Bandini, and I'm from Arter. I'm very pleased to be here with you. I thank the organizers that I've been knowing for a long time now, for giving me the opportunity to share with you the experience we have, in fact, on the smart specialization strategy and the way we are looking at the I3 initiative. I miss very much the in-presence Agorada and the Urada meetings. So I joined the previous speakers in saying that I really hope that we will have the opportunity to meet in person soon, because I mean, it's maybe easier from home to listen and look at the slides, but networking and exchanging of ideas is not possible in reality. It's much more difficult. So there we are anyway. I'm from Arter, as it has been mentioned. Arter is the development agency of Emilia-Romagna region in Italy, dedicated to territorial development, innovation, internationalization, and attractiveness. And in fact, I bring the experience of Arter and the Emilia-Romagna region in this framework. What we do is, in fact, to animate, coordinate, and promote the regional innovation ecosystem, and we support regional stakeholders in participating to European programs and EU opportunities overall. That's why we are there. We are doing that also in the perspective of the I3 initiative. That's why I've put there looking ahead, because in fact, the major task of our agencies is mainly looking ahead and pioneering new opportunities and initiatives for the sake of our territories. Now, there we are. As I was saying, I'd like to share with you the experience of Emilia-Romagna in participating to the S3 platforms. As you can see from the pictures, Emilia-Romagna region is involved in a large number of thematic partnership within the platforms. We started working on that from the very beginning, with the experience of the Vanguard initiative. As Emilia-Romagna is a founding region of Vanguard initiative. By the way, I've seen some other Vanguard friends in the group, so I hope that in fact we will work together, and for sure we will work together also on the I3 instrument that we were looking forward already, I mean, from some time now. we look at the I3 instrument, in fact, as the missing instrument, as maybe Anita mentioned earlier. And we hope we are convinced that it will add not only funding, but also a strategic perspective to interregional innovation and interregional collaboration for innovation and development of our territories. In fact, it is supposed that the I3 investment projects will come from S3 platforms. Why? Because in principle, the platforms have promoted collaboration, and this knowledge and collaboration should have created the basis for the step ahead. Then the platforms have created a trustful environment where stakeholders have exchanged and developed the innovation project, and to go together in a business that is very much important. And in particular, the platforms have been somehow anticipating what has been mentioned as a condition for the new operational programs in terms of opening up RIS3 strategy and priorities. So we think that the strong connection that the partnership have created with the S3 strategies should be a strong base for setting up a strong proposal for the I3 instrument. However, there's a however, the work we've carried out within the partnership of the S3 platforms has enabled to develop and to found basis for strong projects, but to get to mature projects has not been obvious and nor easy. Despite the tough, as you can see, mentioned there, I think Anita mentioned the technical assistance facility, the tough instrument that supported and is supporting the partnerships in developing their investment plans, let's say. However, as I'm saying, we are, with this I3 instrument, or at least a part of it, we are challenged. And I confirm what Andrea was saying. It's an opportunity, but it's also a big challenge. In fact, in the I3 instrument, no fast track is foreseen. That means that it is not obvious that the partnerships and the projects developed within the partnerships of the S3 platforms will go straight away to that opportunity. And as Anita was saying, many aspects of the I3 instrument are still to be clarified. Except for its ambition, we see it as a very ambitious new initiative, and we are ready to test it and to pioneer operations within it, but we are also aware of the challenges. But we look ahead. As I'm saying, it offers opportunities, and it offers as you have heard by Anita, opportunities from different perspectives to strengthen interregional collaboration, yes, but in the perspective to go to bankable, we heard, cross-border investment projects. So we are asked as agencies also to help in adopting a kind of more business-oriented approach to interregional collaboration. And it's an opportunity to go from the mobilization of local ecosystems. And you have heard that a strand is dedicated to that for less developed regions or less prepared regions. But it aims at going to the development of cross-border global value chains. That is, a real big challenge. for the sake of scaling up innovation and addressing companies, and in particular SMEs. That is also another big challenge based on our experience. SMEs are very active, flexible, innovative, but engaging in inter-regional investment may be a big challenge. So we have to be prepared to try and to, let's say, make the best out of our previous experience at the local level and on other inter-regional projects at the European level. But I mean, it's going to be a challenge from our side, from our point of view.
Valeria, 1 minute.
Yeah, Urada on this is on the front line with the experience of its members and the possible participation in the Commission expert group on interregional investment, innovation investments. And I go quickly to next slide, saying that in fact Urada has applied to be member of this European expert group. You see that this expert group, I mean, still we don't have an answer. Urada has expressed my CV as a candidate to be part of the member of the group. Sorry, the group is intended to support the Commission in the definition of the work program and the goals, and to work on the development of the project itself, of the program itself. It is going to be composed by up to 60 members, and it will be there for the duration of the program. It will work by means of plenary meetings, contributing also to the documents that the program will issue, the Commission will issue on the program. And I mean, it will be a kind of think tank, I would say, to provide inputs to the works of the Commission and the agency managing the new program. We plan to set up a Urada I3 expert group, or Urada I3 task force, to be more precise, not to make confusion with names. And we hope that, I mean, Urada members would like to contribute to the group. We would like to create a connection between the expert group of the Commission and the Urada community. And yeah, we don't, I think I don't have time to be more concrete. It's something new. I'm sure we will have the opportunity to speak about that again and exchange experience, views, and inputs for the program. Thank you.
Valeria, and thank you for highlighting this role that Urada will play and the support that Urada is going to make available to the members with this task force, just to provide a platform for the discussion. I've seen that there have been already several questions going on the chat, which have been answered. I don't know if there is some additional question to be addressed to the two speakers, to Anita and Valeria. Of course, they will answer you, and they will answer to any additional questions that come to Urada, which will be collected and shared. So if you still have something to ask, please either leave it on the chat or share with the Urada Secretariat. This is something new. This is something extremely relevant for the future. And as both Anita and Valeria said, this is going to be a big challenge for the regional stakeholders at any level, because requires, let's say, change in the mindset and the point of view, because this is the first time that we are addressing investments, something which is going to stay for a long time and not just cooperation projects. So having said this, I know that the only resource we cannot control is time. And when time is over, it's over. So I would like to thank Agorada for giving this slot in Agorada to talk about I3, the two speakers, Anita and Valeria, you, the participants, and take the opportunity to introduce the next speaker and the next section. Jaime del Castillo, who is somebody who has been involved in innovation strategies and regional cooperation since many years. I was privileged to know him since the last century. Will lead and guide us through this session of international cooperation. I don't want to add anything more on the experience that Jaime has. Everybody knows him. Jaime, it's a pleasure to introduce you. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Esteban. You are really a friend. And then, well, it's true. In any case, that we know each and for each one for the last 20, 25 years working on the same things, but also with Andrea, and also with some of the speakers that I have the honor to present today. Then we will talk about a very interesting program called International Urban and Regional Cooperation that came after, I will say, a big experience of different European Commission institutions to promote the international cooperation of Europe with other parts of the world, to share with them, and I say to share, not to learn, to teach, to share the experience of the policies and the instruments to promote regional economic development. And in particular, in the last years, as all of you know, one of the most important instruments of the European Union to promote regional development and regional competitiveness is RIS3, regional or in regional innovation and smart specialization strategy, or as they call now, research and innovation and smart specialization strategy. But I prefer to stress in the regional word, because I think that RIS3 has been an important instrument to improve the capacity of many European regions to better define what they want to be and how they have to make, to do, to be the region that collectively wants to be. Then, the parting of the large European experience, we have had some projects in some projects in a pilot program financed by European Parliament to check if really there is some interest from European part to promote this technical cooperation in the methodologies and in the ways to implement regional innovation strategies. And later, in the last 2 years, we have also the experience to promote a program called International Urban Cooperation financed by the Foreign Instrument Partnership, that is an instrument of the European External Affairs Service to promote also European interest, but also to promote the European vision of the things and European competence. And then one of the aspects where FPI was centered is in the exchange of urban policies as they are now in the Regional Development Fund, and also the RIS3 experience. And for the last 2 years, 20 Latin American regions were paired with the 20 European regions to exchange experience in innovation policy, to exchange the capacity to collaborate in technological aspects, in business possibilities, and so on. And I think that the experience was very positive, and is now the second part of this experience that really engaged person in this type of activities will present, I have the honor to introduce Mr. Ronald Hall. Many of you know him. He was in many different positions in regional general directorate. He knows very well all the aspects of the European regional policy, but in particular for the last years, I have the privilege to collaborate with him in different projects, and he has a very large experience of the cooperation of European Commission with other parts of the world in this type of technical cooperation. Then he will introduce you with this program, International Urban and Regional Cooperation. Ronald, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Central European time. Good very early morning if you are listening in from Argentina and other countries in Latin America. Congratulations, Jose. And good evening if you are in the Eastern Hemisphere. I will seek to successfully share my screen with you. So, first of all, many thanks to Agorada for inviting me to participate in this conference. I have known the organization for many years and worked closely with them, and I'm very happy that this opportunity has been renewed as they are now a partner in our International Urban and Regional Cooperation Program. What I want to tell you this morning in this hopefully short presentation is that this cooperation has now established quite deep roots, and that's very important if you are working in a city authority or in a regional authority, because it essentially means that the cities and regions are now fully recognized partners in the European Union's global external action policy. In other words, they are recognized as part of the diplomatic efforts of the European Union, which we believe holds many benefits for the cities and regions involved. The regional and urban policy aspect of external policy now has 15 years of history in its most recent incarnation. It inserts into the broad policy dialogues that exist between the EU and non-EU countries that cover a number of topics and sectors. It meets with the concern of both mature and emerging economies to create more sustainable models of development in economic, social, and environmental terms. And we have found that our partners in non-EU countries increasingly are asking for regional and urban policy to be included in the policy dialogue process. And this has taken the form, for example, of political mandates that come from EU, non-EU summits, notably with the EU strategic partners. And last but by no means least, we're engaged in this activity because we've enjoyed very strong political support from the European Parliament over the years. And since 2009, the European Parliament has used its margins of flexibility in budgetary decision-making at the EU level to grant resources to support this form of cooperation. And that European financial support continues right to this day, in the sense that we are still engaged in projects that are 100% supported as a result of decisions made by the European Parliament. I could list a very long set of examples of what the statements coming from our interaction with non-EU countries say. But for example, if I quote the China EU communication, both sides agreed to establish an exchange of experience with the authorities responsible for regional policy, with the object of contributing to the establishment of a policy for reducing regional disparities in China. In Brazil, the dialogue on regional policy will allow Brazil to share the EU's experience in reducing regional disparities and achieving a better territorial balance, etc., etc. There's a similar one with Ukraine, with Russia. One of the more recent ones was in the EU-Japan strategic partnership agreement, which is a very important vehicle for the organization of international cooperation between EU and non-EU countries. And there is this specific focus on cooperation on urban policy, a very particular interest, of course, of Japan as a highly urbanized society, and so on and so on. The result is that in the specific field of regional and urban policy, we now have 14 international agreements formalized with partners in different ministries in different countries, depending on the distribution of competences in those countries. The pictures show Mexico, Colombia, and Argentina. But of course, that's 3 out of a total of 14. They're very simple documents, but nevertheless, they are signed at a very high level. And of course, the critical factor in that for ourselves in the Director General for Regional Policy is that these agreements mean that at a high level mean that we have the legitimate right to mobilize resources in pursuit of the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding, the Joint Declaration, the Letter of Intent, or whatever form the agreement may have taken. The one with China in this case is an MOU, the first one ever to be signed, and it's 15 years old, back in 2006. As Jaime indicated, one of the particularly important developments in the international cooperation has been the support emanating from the European Parliament. I've alluded to it already in the sense that it has brought financial resources with it. And we've used those resources to generate a number of projects, such as World Cities, Urbalac, the LAC meaning that it's targeting relationships with Latin America, and also in the field of regional innovation systems. And S3, we have had the project of Innoval and Innovact. So those are some of the key actions that we have been financing thanks to the European Parliament up until now. But of course, we really joined the big league when in 2016, our colleagues in the External Relations Service of the European Union invited us to participate in external relations policy, which eventually took the form of what was then called the International Urban Cooperation Programme, IUC. And it targeted 5 zones that you can see on the right-hand side of the illustration: Asia, India, North America, Latin America, and Japan. And that project came to an end at the end of 2020. It generated a very large community, particularly of cities, because the vast majority of the resources were reserved for urban cooperation, but we also had regional innovation cooperation, specifically targeting Latin America. Why Latin America? Because Latin America has always been particularly keen to have a cooperation with the EU on this theme. And of course, this has been well and truly piloted with the help of Jaime in many cases, in the case of the Innovact and Innoval projects that I mentioned earlier. So we have a very large community across the globe of cities and to some extent regions working with us in the European Union and working with each other under these key themes of regional and sustainable urban development. The good news is that the end of IUC last year did not mean the end of the EU's external action policy. And IURC, the International Urban and Regional Cooperation Programme, was born. You will have noticed that now we have the region explicitly recognized, and the new IURC focuses therefore on 2 components: city-to-city cooperation in the field of sustainable urban development. It will work on the basis of establishing one-to-one partnerships between cities on each side, as well as creating groups or clusters of cities working on specific urban development themes. And this will be concretized in the form of urban cooperation action plans, a shared document where the cities identify common actions during a period of 18 to 24 months, identify pilot projects, and so on. Then the second component is region-to-region cooperation in the field of innovation, inspired very much by regional innovation systems and S3 in the European Union, again with thematic clusters and one-to-one working relationships. And the concrete form, similar to the urban component, will be the Regional Cooperation Action Plan. Who is engaged? Well, all of the EU cities and regions have the capacity to apply. And I would draw your attention to the fact that applications are still acceptable up until the 31st of May of next week, effectively. While the authorities on the other side, in the non-EU countries, will also have their mechanisms for establishing their priority cities and regions. And then we will engage in a matching process at the level of the IURC project. You can see the list of countries, therefore, involved in the city-to-city cooperation in the Americas, Asia, and the Pacific. And likewise, in the region-to-region cooperation, it's the Americas and Asia. The significance of the countries denoted in red is that they are new under IURC and were not present in the previous version of IUC. So the second piece of good news under IURC is not just the addition of the letter R, but it also is the addition of many more very important partners to work with under these important themes. So that's what IURC will look like on a map as to who is engaged. Remember, this is about cooperation. This is not about development aid. So the selection of countries to participate is focused on developed countries and emerging economies in the world. It's an EU project, so one of its key intentions is to project, to use the favored word, EU policy priorities and values. And there are many in that case. We have obviously the urban agenda of the EU and the United Nations New Urban Agenda in the case of urban cooperation. We have now, of course, the Green Deal. And I think in that context, the Bauhaus could generate a lot of interesting areas for cooperation over the coming years. Likewise, I think I3 should be able to do the same, not of course in the immediate future because they are getting off the ground, but that could be a useful fund of experience to bring to bear on our relationships with cities and regions outside the EU. We have tried to bring focus to the policies that we want to organize the cooperation around. And we've essentially established 3 in number. The first one is the ecological transition, very much inspired by the Green Deal, focusing on things like the circular economy, nature-based solutions, sustainable urban agriculture, and decarbonized and energy efficiency, notably with regard to the urban cooperation and in the region-to-region cooperation, sustainable urban agriculture. And of course, we really do want the work that is going on at the city-to-city level and the work that is going on at the region-to-region level to establish relationships and synergies between them. Second thematic priority is urban and regional renewal with for example, the urban agenda of the EU, mobility and transport, urban poverty as the key themes, and Industry 5.0 when it comes to region cooperation. And the third theme is the innovative, sustainable and carbon neutral ecosystems. And there we have tourism and culture, health, life science, etc., education, tourism and culture, regional innovation, education, divided according to whether it's city to city or region to region, but once again, with many opportunities for both components to synergize. So that's basically all I wanted to say for now. I want to draw your attention to the fact that we have, after all of these years' experience, collected a large fund of experiences, concrete experiences at the level of the cities and regions that have participated so far in IUC and some preparatory actions funded by the European Union, which are uploaded on the IUC and IURC websites, where, by the way, in the case of the IURC website, you can find the application form for regions and cities wanting to participate on the European side, that is. And you will find written up examples, fully illustrated, of the kind of things that we've been doing over the years, the themes and so on, that have attracted attention on both sides under IUC in particular. These are the major sources of this information. I will not read them out individually. The PowerPoint, I imagine, will be available after this event. So once again, thank you, Agorada, and thank you to all of the participants for your attention, and hope to see you in person very soon.
Thank you very much, Ronald. It has been very clear and very synthetic, and you have maintained the time schedule. That is important because we have a very, very charged, very intense meeting today. Then, before to pass the floor to the next speaker, I used to take your attention to the chat, where you could find the web direction, the link to make the inscription in the IUC program. Then any region that will want to participate in the project has to write in a formulary that is very quick to end. It's just 30 minutes, and then it will be considered as the expression of interest to select the European regions that will participate in IUC. I think that it really interesting to try to participate. As Ronald says before, my self-experience, I think that is a lot of interesting matters that could be leveraged in this type of projects, and to have a concrete experience in the previous IUC program. We have now two speakers. The first one is Jarek Johnson from Ostrobothnia. Jarek, I apologize, but you will have only 5 minutes to speak because we have a very charged schedule, as I told before. But Jarek has a large experience to collaboration with Latin America from Finland, Ostrobothnia region, one of the most Nordic European regions, and has collaborated besides with one of the most south regions in the world. Then Jarek, you have the floor. Welcome, and nice to meet you again.
Yes, thank you. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
It's okay. So thank you first for this opportunity to speak, and I will just very briefly tell you about our experiences, and I can elaborate more on later. We are cooperating in Ostrobothnia, that's Western Finland, and with Tierra del Fuego in Argentina, that's as south as you can get. And the cooperation was, after long discussion, we decided to cooperate within the field of energy solutions, smart specialization, and forestry. And today, that was in 2019. Today, what we can see as achievement, we have been modeling the winds in Tierra del Fuego for wind energy. We have been discussing energy solutions together with the Wärtsilä company, a company that we work very closely with in Ostrobothnia, who is also doing these solutions. And we have maybe been able to influence the thinking on the energy matrix in Tierra del Fuego and provide a solution for a more sustainable energy production that could also come at cheaper costs. We have also cooperated in smart specialization. We have developed the Ostrobotnia model of smart specialization, and we'll be just discussing that. And we have submitted an application to Europaid, and we hope to continue the cooperation within that theme. Then the third field of cooperation was the twinning between stakeholders in the forestry. That is still in initial phase, but we hope on doing that as well. If we turn to the lessons learned on the cooperation and how you would think on your application when submitting it, my first point would be that it's very important to think on the cooperation to find the right scope. It should not be too wide, but it should not be too narrow either. Not too wide because then it will be too general, not too narrow because then you have very few stakeholders that you can engage. The stakeholders you are engaging have to be persons that have been reflecting on the topics in their own region. I mean, for instance, not only people who can say that this is what we are doing in our country or region, but also why we are doing this, because that is what makes the transferable of the good practices. Apart from learning from each other and transferring practices, it's also very important to see that this is functioning well as a development inspiration in a way that when you tell something about your region to an outsider person or stakeholder, you discover new things. You meet new people. For instance, in Tierra del Fuego, before we got to Tierra del Fuego, the universities had never met with the public sector. And they met when we were there, and they had a lot of things to discuss. So this is also inspiring the stakeholders, and this is a very important perspective. It's important to have very motivated people and look for the people. You have to keep your hierarchy very informed, but look for the people who are really highly motivated. We work through people coming from Latin America, working in our region, and they have sort of an interest for the project that goes beyond the project, and they are sort of following the project because they have both cultures in them. So I would say that the cultural context is very important. Together with of course that you know your context thematically. We were, for instance, able to identify that, say, the Tierra del Fuego, that they have a problem of industrial lock-in, but that's due to the fact that we have one problem ourselves as well, and we have been thinking on this topic. So you have to have the cultural competence with you, but you also have to be deep in the fields that you opt for. Finally, I would say it's also very important to have some recreational activities involved in the cooperation. I mean, they had a Tierra del Fuego Loppet, that's like the Vasa Loppet, but in Tierra del Fuego, the southernmost skiing competition in the world, 50 kilometers close to Antarctica. And we were able to send 2 skiers to go to Antarctica because, I mean, these things are sort of fun because after all, the cooperation between regions are cooperation between people. And also with having some recreation activities and some this kind, you create the conditions for the twinning that will continue, that you know, you have a good friend in Tierra del Fuego somewhere else, something is happening on your table, and then you can pass an email to the person and you maintain the contact. Because, I mean, finding good cooperation, finding projects, it takes time, you know, ideas has to be anchored and so on. And the idea is to maintain the contact over time, but to also have a clear focus on what you are doing. That was about what I had to say. And yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerker, for the clarity of the exposition, and in particular to respect strictly the time allocate. That's really a performance. Well, then I have now the pleasure also to pass the floor to Gabriela Macoview, that many of you knows, and she was working in regional development for a long time, even since the beginning of the adhesion of the Romania to the European Union, and she has a large experience in RIS3 even before the name, because she was in charge of the Regional Innovation Technological Transfer Strategy in the adhesion period. And she has also participated in interesting pairing in the previous IUC program. Gabriela, you have the floor, and nice to meet you again also.
Thank you very much, Jaime. I will try to be fast. Hope that you are not going to be puzzled by my speed. Yes, we really appreciate that you consider that we also have a successful pairing. Our pairing came out from the fact that we had cooperated together with Agorada and our representation office in Brussels for this application. And it resulted in the connection with Metropolitan Agency for Valle de Aburra from Antioquia region in Colombia. Why do we consider this a successful pairing? Because first of all, it came at the moment when we had 20 years of experience in European cooperation with other countries and in other international projects. But this was the first time when we went over the seas, and we discovered that this cooperation brought on the top of the fact that we had this proactive and open attitude to share the areas where we can perform, but also to share the areas where we still have challenges and we would like to address together. And on the top of this, the cultural experience, as Jerker said, was extraordinary, because we are speaking of a total other environment. We had also cooperated a little bit atypical in the sense that we had embraced the best practices and brought them to our country and to our region in northeast of Romania. But we also allowed us to focus supplementary on other initiatives that represented an added value for our colleagues in Colombia. We are Regional Development Agency, a policy maker for regional development. Our colleagues in Aburra Valley are urban planning, transport authority and environment authority together for 12 municipalities, out of which is also the Medellin city. In sustainable development, as you see here, it was about the management of the water system. They learned how to create a plan for integrated the management of the water system in Valle de Aburra. And we had on the other side discovered an interesting instrument for developing urban mobility sustainable plans for organization with a large number of employees, especially private organization. And we embrace this idea because we consider that this can be then translated for other organizations, not only in our region, but also in other entities around the country. The second one was related to the exchange of experience in area of the standard of living. The quality of the environmental parameters represent for us an interesting initiative developed in Colombia by Public University in Medellin. And we have put in contact with our colleagues of the university in Iași, the Faculty of Geography, in order to explore how the monitoring of the parameters can be developed together with the citizens and transformed in a very interesting early warning system for floods, for wood fire, for other like seismic incidents and so on. And on the other hand, they have also see how we are involving the municipalities in urban development, and we have brought the interesting approach of developing an alternative for funding the investment project based on budgetary participatory process at local level. And we found out that municipalities in our region became very interesting about this system, and they have already piloted projects. And also our colleagues were interested to see how they can develop a system to demonstrate the impact of investment projects developed by the Metropolitan Agency. And we have started here from the model of the monitoring and control system that we apply for European funded program. And that was a good point to start with. The third one, and this one, I think it's the one that is more undergoing as we speak, beyond the project that we have implemented between 2018 and 2019, was the cooperation between clusters. We have entered into discussion between the health city cluster in Medellin and imagistic and molecular medicine cluster set up in our region. The memorandum of understanding already is in practice, and they are now targeting some project proposals to be submitted in this autumn. And last but not least is the example of the cooperation between two incubators, excellent stakeholders for the startup entrepreneurship, Rutayan and Rubik Hub. In conclusion, I just want to say that before we were envisage potential partners for this cooperation, we were gathering information, trying to understand what is beyond the regional development, the cultural ecosystem. We also tried to focus our dialogue on the most transportable, transferable, translational solutions for this cooperation, because we were aware about the fact that we need to focus on pilot projects that can mature and show results during the implementation period. And last but not least is the fact that we remained in contact. We have considered the team involved in the project as friends, not partners. And we are very glad to report you that we have submitted already a new expression of interest for cooperation at the beginning of May, before EURC was launched. And I think this EURC competition will be a success, because two other regions in my country want to put applications and want to come into this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabriela, also for the clarity and the discipline to maintain the schedule that you have for intervention. Well, I think that this session has ended now with a clear exposition of the interest to collaborate in international regional cooperation. And I use and invite you to present your candidature to the program, as you have the link address in the chat. And just to remember that the delay ends 31 May, and you could choose or you could have preference to collaborate with Latin American regions or with Chinese regions. And I think that the second part is really interesting because you have some experience to try to collaborate with China. You know that it's very difficult to overpass the administrative and all the legal and institutional difficulties to have a fluid collaboration. And with this project, I see, unless you have the security that you will be supported by official institutions in China, then the possibilities to collaboration will be much easier. Well, I pass the floor and the parole to Rosa Escamilla, that is in charge of the animation of the overall program today. Rosa?
Thank you very much, Jaime, and well, thank you very much to all the speakers for your interesting presentations. Lastly, Albert Bravo will explain us the Innovation Growth Lab. Albert Bravo is the founding director of the Innovation Growth Lab. Since joining Nesta, his working has been at the intersection of innovation, growth, and finance. He has also been senior economist and has led two of Nesta's major research programs in this area. Thank you very much, Albert, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Let me share the screen and realize we
can hear you, Albert.
Okay, Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that should be. Let me thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I know we're running a little bit short of time, so I'll try to be brief. Let me share the screen with some slides. I may skip a little bit of what I was intending, just conscious of time, and so I imagine some of you have to go to other meetings. Just checking, can all of you see the screen? Perfect. That's always useful. So let me maybe start on why we're here. And I guess I mean, we spend hundreds of billions across OECD countries, programs, policies to support productivity, innovation, and so on. And one of the questions that I guess that brings all us here and all the wider policy communities, how can we make this investment as impactful as possible? And this was the question why a few years ago we launched the Innovation Growth Lab, which is a global partnership that basically aims to increase the impact of innovation growth policy by ensuring that it's informed by new evidence, better evidence, and more experimental practice. We are at we see that at the intersection of research and policy, we are basically, the community that we bring together spans both the world of policy and research and practice. On the one hand, we have a number of governments and agencies that basically support our work, that are kind of the policies. And then a large network of researchers that are keen to engage and collaborate with the governments that we work with. We've been doing a lot of things, trying to basically help agencies around the world to become much more experimental, trying out new policies, new ideas, improving the evidence base they generate with them, advocating and campaigning for additional funding for policy experiments, including from the Commission, and quite lots of other things that I'm not going to go into today. Maybe the focus of what I wanted to share is what does it mean to be experimental? How is it different from what we are typically do when it comes to developing new policies? And if we think about the traditional approach of doing policy development, you'll have a minister, a regional minister, a government minister, a director general. They'll have the idea. This is the new policy. This will solve the SME tech adoption challenge or the business university collaboration challenge. Let's go. Let's set up the new kind of large policy, large program. Let's just have one design, and let's simply hope it works. We do the best effort that we can, ensuring it is as best design as possible. But ultimately, we basically just go ahead with the policy, and we hope that's going to work. What's the alternative? The alternative is to be much more experimental. That means starting small. That means trialing different designs systematically, trying to learn what works, and then scale it up. That could be trying a new program, a new policy, or trying a change, testing the impact of a change in an existing program or policy that you are running. Ultimately, a key characteristic of doing an experiment is that it's a test that you're trying to do to learn about whether a policy, whether a program is working or is not working. And that's, I guess, the key idea. It's, yes, you're trying out things, which we do regularly, but when you try out something new, you are actually putting in place the systems to learn whether it's working better than what you were doing or not. Just to give you guys a couple of specific examples, relatively simple experiments in the sense of particularly the ones on the top, and how they can be used in practice. One of the challenges that many agencies have is to attract mentors, businesses to participate in the programs. So sometimes experiments are something as simple as A/B testing, trying to nudge individuals to participate in your program. So for instance, the UK government, they had a mentoring program where they were falling short of the number of mentors that they wanted, the minister had promised they were going to have. And they started doing very simple, purely messaging experiments to try to see how do we get most mentors to complete the training and become active mentors. The difference between the different experiments that they ran was an additional 800 mentors for something that was literally very simple, just randomizing a little bit of text, sending a message to some people, sending a slightly different message to another group of people, and just finding out which message worked better to get them interested in participating in the program. Just conscious of time, let me kind of give you another example also of a relatively simple intervention. We very often plan and run funding competitions to increase, to get different academics or academics and businesses or different businesses to collaborate together into a project or a program. So in that case, one group of researchers at the Harvard Medical School basically ran one of these programs and just did a very small tweak in the design of the program. The tweak that they did was, in order to apply for that funding, you had to attend an information session. And as part of the information session, they basically mix people up and they, quote unquote, force them or nudge them to talk to each other. That was a very simple intervention. But the result of that intervention was that the people that were basically randomized to meet were actually almost twice more likely to collaborate. And again, that was a very small tweak. That didn't cost any money to do. That was just embedding a very small scale experiment into the delivery of an existing program with a significant impact in terms of the new collaborations that were created at very little cost. The last example I wanted to discuss, just kind of to give you an idea, just some down-to-earth examples that you can probably relate to, is one example that one project that was done in China, and we know, many of you, if not all of you, probably run different types of interventions to help businesses, small businesses to grow. Typically, you'll have someone paid by the agency to support some consultancy to that business. This group of academics tried something slightly different. They sort of said, what if we basically, the only thing that we do is we help small business managers to learn from each other. So instead of putting a consultant that would basically teach them how they had to manage their company, what they did was, let's just create monthly groups of businesses where they get together and they talk to each other for a year of the challenges they face, how they are dealing with their challenges, and yes, we're putting a facilitator in there to facilitate the conversation, but that's it. And they did that in an experimental way. So they basically said, here are a couple thousand businesses, don't remember the exact number now. We don't know whether this is going to work, so we are going to use a lottery. Half of those businesses will get this intervention. The other half will continue with business as usual. And they just realized the businesses that had gone through the intervention, they increased their firm revenue by 8%, which for those of you that work on business support, it's quite a big impact for an intervention that didn't cost much. The main, I guess, message that I like to kind of leave you with is that regardless of the program that you are thinking about, and this is an example of a program, a typical funding call where you announce, you promote it, then you get the applicants, then you assess the proposals, then you finalize the terms, and then you give them the funding and the support. Across any program, there is always a customer journey. And across that customer journey that the SME customers that you are serving will go through, you have many questions about how things could be done differently. And you can use experiments to address many of those. How do you get more applicants? What support you give to applicants? In addition to funding, is there a need for additional support? And so on. I mean, what do you do with the, after the end of the program? Should you continue with something else or not? All these are very simple questions that are important, that have an impact that will have an impact on the policy and on the additionality of the policy and the performance of the businesses. All these are important questions. Typically, we just assume the answer to those. We think which is the best answer that we can think of, and we just go ahead. But actually, many of the things can be tested, and sometimes the answers that you get surprise you, and you end up with much better choices and much more impactful programs. So what basically at IGL we do is to try to move organizations from the bottom quartile in here, where most decisions are basically based on intuition, to the top right in the screen, where they are much more experimental. And that means both having internally the openness, the willingness to question what they are doing, being agile, constantly testing and learning how to do things better, but also the capabilities to do that, because and how they can build their capabilities in-house. My last slide is, if any of these is interesting, Agorada and IGL have agreed to basically cooperate with to help strengthen the capabilities of the Agorada members that are interested, so that they can improve the design of the programs. So Rosa has a Slido poll, and what we're trying to get is basically your views on whether you would be interested in participating in a workshop on this, not just 50 minutes, but half a day, and whether we should think about offering more advanced training offer following that for the organizations that really basically want to go down this path. And I think I'll leave it here, and I'll just give you the floor to Rosa.
Thank you very much, Albert. Yes, we have the Slido questions, so my colleague Giacomo is going to proceed to share it with you. And you can join at slido.com, and once you enter, we can answer all the 4 questions. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or don't know how to do it, just please tell us on the chat, and we will help you.
It is very, very easy. You should take your phone, type slido.com, and then put hashtag Agorada 2021. And so you can join the Slido pool. I will leave this slide for another 30 seconds, and then we can move to the real question.
And maybe if anyone has any questions in the meantime, maybe rush a little bit, just conscious that there is still the conclusion and we were running late, but they can add questions to the chat, or they can ask them now as well while we have this slide. So we also wanted to get a sense of how likely, how many people have set up experiments in the past, and what's the interest of doing more. Let's see if we can get a few more responses in the poll.
I see people are voting, so let's give them a few more seconds.
I think it's interesting to see the number of agencies that have been doing policy experiments. It's still a small sample, I would say, given that we have 90 people in the call. So I wonder whether the other 70 people are basically in the yes or no category. But just conscious of time, I may wonder whether it's useful to see the kind of the other questions.
When you want, Albert, we can move to the second one.
Yeah, that's what I saw. That's if you can, yeah, be conscious of time, we just kind of probably. Okay, so it seems it's always nice to see almost unanimity about the idea of becoming more experimental. It's always nice also that there is no 100% because it says that there's some diversity of views, which is always a good thing to avoid good things. So. Do we want to move, just conscious of time, do we want, I mean, you manage the timing. So Rosa, if you want to just move to the next one.
Okay, perfect. We go to the next one.
Okay, I think we can move to the next one. Just we have some active responders that are very quick, but then the.
Perfect, yes.
And just to give the background where we are speaking, I mean, the idea was, let's just start with one workshop. We see what the interest is based on that, and depending on the interest, we could think about more of a kind of a longer kind of term, more intensive capacity building program, which is something that we've been doing with quite a few different organizations, from TAFTI with some agencies to NASA for kind of the some of kind of the programs. So I think we've gotten the sample size that we basically have been getting on the responses. Thank you very much. If you are, I mean, we with Agorada will be getting back to you on the workshop, and we'll put a date for after the summer and hopefully as many of you can make it. That would be ideal. And based on that interest, we'll see what comes next. But if in the meantime you want to reach out, I'm sure Agorada will share the slides. We have a website, we have a database with a lot of examples of interesting experiments that may inspire you. And we'd be obviously always happy to have a chat and tell you something more about the work we're doing and how you can use experiments even before the workshop. So just drop us a line. And thank you very much to Agorada and everyone for kind of still being here.
Thank you very much, Albert, for this interactive presentation and for taking all parts of your initiative and of your ideas. Thank you very much for participating today. So, well, finally, today we have the pleasure of having Bogdan Celariu, who is going to make the closure and conclusions of Agorada 2021. He's the Vice President of Agorada, and please, Bogdan, the floor is yours, and thank you.
Thank you so much. I will be very short because I know the glucose level is low, and that's why people also don't reply to the slide and so on. So I just want to say three things. One, to thank a lot for the organization and for the speakers. We learned a lot of interesting things today. Thanks also for the participants. Secondly, as a bit of a corporate historian, I must say that this morning I checked what was the agenda of Agorada 7 and 8 years ago. And it's very interesting to see the progress, like in the next programming period, what are our hopes and dreams? And it's also very interesting to see what we were talking about 7 years ago. And we were talking about very small things or simple things. And now we could see that agencies do have a lot of complex things to deal. Like there's a lot about economic diplomacy, like, going outside Europe, doing a lot of things, cooperating more. We see there's a lot of experimentation about Bauhaus and society and design and architecture, and everything becomes multi-sectorial in Europe. Last but not least, I would say that to add on this complexity, that also the resources in the future will be bigger in Europe. I mean, don't forget that we have the next cohesion funds, the recovery and the resilience, the REACT-EU, and all this would mean 2 or 3 more, there will be 2 or 3 times more money than normal. This means a lot of challenges for us and a lot of new topics. So that's why I'm thankful to Agorada, because we have a platform to discuss this. And the good news is that our members from Valencia do plan to have the Agorada Plus in a non-virtual way. So actually, we invite you to take part of Agorada Plus this October on 28 and 29, to be there with us and to debate live all these new interesting things that are bubbling now in Europe. Last but not least, please tell your colleagues and friends and collaborators that on the 30th of June and the 1st and 2nd of July, we will have the Agorada summer course. So if you have new colleagues, beginners, people that are not familiar with things regarding European projects, if they want to build up a bit, please tell them to join us. And that's all from my side. I'm really thankful for having so many of you today, and thanks a lot to the Agorada team and for the speakers for making time and staying with us today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bogdan. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.